Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And we are on the most awaited session of the day, the last panel discussion on the future of banking, rise of AI plus IoT. A very wonderful session designed in a great way with the wonderful choice of speakers who are part of this session. Some of the great topics discussed here would be big data and IoT creating intelligent data models, artificial intelligence in banking revolution, and about the robotic process automation. And now I would like to introduce the panel members to you in the order of sequence. Our first panel member, Mr. Prasanna Lohar, the Chief Innovation Officer from DCB Bank. Mr. Lohar, welcome to the India DigiBank and Payment Summit. You have always supported her in our every event. Thank you so much for your presence here again. Joining
Yeah,
Mr.
thank you
Lohar, I
so
have
much.
Thank you, Mr. Lohar. Now I have Mr. Amit Saxena, the Deputy Chief Technology Officer from State Bank of India. Mr. Saxena, you have been very supportive since the day one of the event. It was really a pleasure having you here. We look forward for your exciting panel discussion. Thank you so much, Mr. Saxena.
Thank you.
We have in the panel our third panel member, Mr. Sanjay Singh, Mr. Sanjay Singh, the Chief Information Officer and Chief Technology Officer from Paytm Payments Bank. Mr. Singh, thank you so much for your presence here, and we welcome you to the India DigiBank and Payment Summit.
Thank you.
And now we have Ms. Shalini Warrior, the Executive Director, Chief Operating Officer, and Business Head for Retail from Federal Bank. Welcome to the India DigiBank and Payment Summit, ma'am. It's heartily welcoming you to the summit. Thank you so much for your presence.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
And we have Mr. Anish Agarwal, the Director for Data and Analytics from Royal Bank of Scotland. Mr. Agarwal, we are heartily welcoming you to the India DigiBank and Payment Summit. We look forward for an exciting discussion from your end.
Pleasure. Thanks, Madhav.
And finally, I would like to introduce Mr. Fani Tankirala, the Senior Director for Delivery, Operations and Solutions from Explore Solutions Limited. Explore is one of the innovative digital banking solution company who have always supported and partnered for this event. A wonderful panel discussion session. Mr. Fani, you being the moderator, all over to you. You are the captain of the ship. A control to you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Madhav, and it's really being a pleasure with this elite panel being here. We lost a bit of time, but we'll try to overcome it in the next 30 minutes or so. So, I mean, the journey what we have taken, especially in the banking industry in the last decade, tells us probably the direction where we will be heading in the next 10 years. So that brings from a traditional banking, which has been primarily brick and mortar approach, to an on-demand, seamless digital experience is a journey what we have fortunately being in the midst of that journey. And with the customers still being in the central focus, banks are looking at more digitizing or the digital transformation of their core. And in this process of doing so, there is another technology transformation, things like open banking, artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, all are going to decide the real future of the banking industry. So today, if you ask me, the modern banker is one who is comfortable talking about APIs, IoTs, artificial intelligence, machine learning, in the same breath as he talks about repo rates or SLR. So we have our eminent panelists exemplify this trend, as can be seen by their outstanding contributions in driving the transition in their respective organizations. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all, these panel members, and without further ado, I'll get started on this to wait to listen to the panel members more. So maybe we will get started on one thing which always also bothers me is, what do you count as your best technology adoption and why? And similarly, what are your worst technology nightmares? I mean, let us go with the lone lady of the panel members, Ms. Shalini Warrior. So if you can just cover it on that what is the best technology adoption that you have gone for, and what is your worst technology nightmares?
Thank you, Hani, and good afternoon again to everybody. So I think, this is sometimes a little difficult question to answer, right? I don't want to get into kind of intricate details of some of the failures we've had. So let me start by taking the positive side of things, the best technology adoption. I think I would prefer to look at it from, what have we seen from the customer side of things rather than just the bank side of things. So what is it that our customers have enjoyed? What is it that the customers have appreciated? And I think, what wins hands down is obviously the whole mobile technology kind of adoption that we have seen. So for us personally, and I'm sure some of the other panelists will probably endorse what I'm saying, the customer adoption on the mobile has been the single biggest thing we've seen in the last few years. Obviously, the increasing use of smartphones in the country, the ease and convenience that mobile apps have provided, the intuitive nature of the UI UX that has been there, have all contributed towards this. And clearly, in my view, as well as from a bank standpoint, that has been something that has really stood out in terms of customer adoption. So I think that's one part of it, which is the customer adoption. If I were to look at it slightly differently from a kind of what capability of the industry as a whole have customers adopted? Again, I think UPI will win hands down. The entire kind of, you don't need to remember an account number, you don't need to remember IFSCs, etc. That whole ethos and philosophy of convenience has resulted in, billions and billions of transactions going through the UPI. So on one hand is the whole mobile banking as a technology, and the other hand is UPI as a channel, as a payment capability, etc. So I think these two would probably rank for me as the best technology adoption from a customer standpoint. A more internal view, if I were to take purely from a federal bank perspective, the migration we had done into Finacle 10 about 3 years back has given us the agility and flexibility we needed from an API banking perspective, from a middleware perspective. So that I think we will rank high. I think to your other part of the question, worst technology nightmares, I don't think there's anything that can stand out. I think as anybody who's heading technology will tell you, every day there is something or the other that, comes up. So 2 years back around the same period as we speak, we went through a massive amount of disruption because of the Kerala floods, and we had to shift a lot of our capability into DR from DC in literally kind of, virtually overnight. We had to do a lot of shifting. So every August brings back memories of that. And as I speak, Kerala is raining and pouring, and that's the only memory all of us have of that. So I don't think it's a technology nightmare as long as you're prepared for it and have working through it. So I don't see that as a nightmare. So logically speaking, I would treat everything as literally, the technology adoption from a customer standpoint, and mobile and UPI for me stand out amongst all the others.
Fantastic, Shalini. I mean, the way the mobiles have brought in, and the way you articulated well, and finally the way you said there is nothing like a nightmare for you, I mean, exemplifies your leadership there. So moving on this, what is your take? Maybe I'll post it to Sanjay Singh. What is your take on the technology change management? I mean, that seems to be the crux of the whole thing. One is technology and managing the change on that with respect to, let it be artificial intelligence or machine learning or intelligent process automation, IoT. I mean, how complex is technology refreshing for your business, and how are you managing it, Sanjay Singh? You're on mute, Sanjay.
Sorry. So it's an interesting question to us. We are one of the newer banks. So, we have an advantage of not kind of having the legacy and having the opportunity to build the bank differently. I think it'll be a lot more, would love to hear from other panelists, because for them, it's a bigger problem to manage. We are 3 years old. A lot of we are basically, technically you can call us a neo bank, though we are a full bank, we have a license. We are a payments bank. So obviously we are not as big, we don't do lending, etc. But for us, we actually, right from day one, we actually, except for the core CBS, core banking. Everything else is that we have spun around is actually on the new tech. So the whole stack is, open source, a lot of open source technology, a lot of scale. We have kind of innovated hugely around the core banking. Core banking was never built for the kind of scale. I mean, if you put a nodal pipe onto a, CBS, it has challenges. Our technology because we are very restrictive, we can't, let's say, we can't do overdraft. So for us, managing a payments bank without, kind of breaking compliance makes us a lot more complicated, because a lot of things with other banks can get away with, we can't. We cannot go beyond 1 lakh. You cannot go negative in balances. So we really, and we have huge amount of pipe, So for us, the good part was that we really built a lot of technology outside of core banking. We were day one, we are mobile first. We are mobile only probably. We have a very little traffic coming around from, we don't have a lot of branch. That's how, so for us, it's, technology transition is not a problem. Technology, but any bank is hugely operationally complex, lot of compliance. And so automatically, how much automation you can then bring in. Huge amount of data gets generated. How you adopt technology and in a larger bank, for us, we are still a small bank. So for us, it's easy. The important part is that, AI, machine learning, chatbots, a lot of these technologies are kind of coming in, right? Some get talked about a lot, like chatbots get talked about a lot because it immediately kind of cuts down the cost of a bank hugely. Because right now with the kind of infrastructure, we are still kind of doing, kind of okay. We have to kind of build our pipes much stronger. We have to build in the kind of scale that we are dealing with now. I think the country never, built that kind of scale, right? We were 35% banked population to now 85% in almost no time. Obviously, a lot of people not kind of doing transactions, but there's a huge sudden upside, right? So, our pipes, our infrastructure that we have, the industrial infrastructure that we built, that has got built over a period of time, needs a refresh itself, right? For example, IMPS came in, UPI came in, that kind of took some load off it, but still. So for us, the important part is, and for any other bank, that, when the new technologies are coming in, how do you make sure that they are not practiced in silos? So, in a larger bank, it will be a bigger problem that, every vertical will have a technology team. They might be running some, AI experiments or a big data experiments. And, so it becomes a little complicated. So the bigger problem is that how do you put strategy first and then put your, technology gets fit into the entire strategy layer. The strategy could be different for, let's say, one kind of business, corporate business, retail business, the DMT business, the other kind of businesses, lending, etc. But the core requirement of technology more or less remains the same, right? So how you can kind of build a model where you are not kind of isolating, and making a mess of having 20,000 different kind of products and technology service providers kind of, built in, that basically will make it even more nightmare for a CTO or a CIO, depending on how the bank is. So for us, the good part is that because we are building things ground up, we were able to kind of manage this fairly well. We have a standard set of, technologies and things. And we the other difference is that unlike many other banks, we build a lot of technology. We don't buy a lot of technology, we build it, right? Most of the time, earlier it was a technology integration. Banks never had a CTO role earlier. It was mostly a CIO role. You basically sort out RFPs, kind of get a technology from different players, kind of integrated and run it. So, but now the banks are changing. Now you have to build a lot of technology on your own. Otherwise, if you are trying to kind of build any end-to-end service for a consumer, and and you want to kind of give it out, and 5 different pieces are being done by 5 different service providers, it becomes a little difficult to kind of move around in the kind of space and time. So for us, by keeping things inside, by doing a lot of stuff on our own, by being a technology-centric company, that has, and basically making sure that you have a standardized set of technology platforms, technology and platforms, I think has made our life easy. But as I said, I would love to hear, feedback from other panelists, because they will have a much more, I think, better
Yeah.
kind of answer to this.
So Sanjay, I mean, definitely is breaking silos is one thing which you mentioned, and you have a natural advantage of not having a legacy are valid points. So certainly I would like to hear from Shalini, because you probably are not in that league, and you can talk about what he mentioned about the other companies in quick 1 or 2 minutes, Shalini.
Yeah, so I think obviously, Sanjay has a natural advantage of being younger and more kind of newer from a technology perspective. But if I were to kind of look at it from a federal bank perspective, it's less about, I think it's less about the hard elements of technology. I think it's more about a mindset. And that's what we have been kind of emphasizing with our team members. So yes, we had a legacy, we had a legacy of systems. We still have some, our core banking solution, like I said earlier, went through a refresh 3 years back. All of that will happen. But the one that I have kind of been working with the team on and emphasizing to the team on is how you get the mindset from an agility standpoint. So, there are solutions today for virtually everything. There are middleware solutions, some other solution, etc. So the mindset is what we've been focusing on to get the agility that we need. So we've done a couple of things. One, from a digital standpoint, we actually have created a separate team that is focused only on digital. So that's like the digital center of excellence is what we call it. And it's a product process, all kind of mixed together, all expertise rests over there. And it becomes a center of excellence or a center of expertise from a technology, from a digital perspective. Yes, they need to deal with the traditional technology people, but at least they provide the required kind of cultural change that needs to be made in the organization. And they lead that effort. So that's one thing that we've done. The second thing we encourage a lot of is POCs. We spend a fair amount of our kind of budget on, setting aside money and time for POCs. So we do a lot of POCs on blockchain, on AI, on RPAs. And when we're convinced it's got ability to scale up, then we invest more behind it. So between kind of creating the digital center of excellence, encouraging a lot more POCs, we've overcome some of the so-called traditional challenges on change management. But ultimately, I believe, Funny, it is all about the mindset. I mean, the hardware elements of it can be changed,
Absolutely, Shalini. I mean, same issue addressed by two different groups, one with a legacy and one the new kid on block. So, I mean, it is quite interesting. I mean, moving on to the next, I mean, the very fact that we are having this over a webinar and not a physical, the current pandemic situation, with the lack of direct contact with the physical meetings or meeting your customers. My question is towards Anish Agarwal, and how do you secure your business assets in the new normal, which is work from home or work from anywhere paradigm? How do you assess the new opportunities or new threats, and also the indicators of compromise that stem out of these newer channels of communication or reaching out?
Thanks, Vani. Good question. So perhaps the way I would look at it is the COVID-19 pandemic has led organizations, and not just organizations across in a specific geography, but across the globe, to quickly adopt to remote working and work from home. And it has been for first time for the many of such organizations. And this cultural shift is necessary, is currently being looked at necessity for employee health and well-being to flatten the curve as well as business continuity. But such a drastic and widespread change has created a lot of new risks for the organizations and especially for the banks as well. And the way I look at it is for remote employees, there are many security risks, and I see three in particular, which pose a significant threat. First, of course, is, as we understand, the email scams. So many scammers apparently send phishing emails with the intent to steal sensitive information from the recipient of the particular organization. Especially in complicated times like the current novel coronavirus pandemic, phishers are hoping to take advantage of trusting victims. The second is the unsecured Wi-Fi. During this time, many remote employees are using their private home network, which can increase the risk related to data leakage or data loss as well. Third parties may be able to intercept and access sensitive emails, passwords, and messages as well. And the third bit, which I see perhaps, is the use of personal computers. Whenever someone's working in office, the IT setup is far more robust and strong and secure. but personal computers, many remote workers admit to their personal devices rather being their own, and they may not even have antiviruses. And I recall there was a recent survey which was done by Cisco where 46% of employees reported they perhaps may have transferred files between their work and personal computers. Now, even if employees retain the sensitive data and store it on their personal devices, that puts many companies at risk, especially if said employee, leaves the organization. So perhaps, there are a few steps which the organizations can take to mitigate such risk. First, of course, is to require that employees use a non-stored password to connect to the network, especially for VPN access. The second thing that perhaps I encourage within my organization is enforce reasonable session timeouts for sensitive programs or apps. Normally, the way it works is while you're logged in remotely, people get up for a quick coffee break or a comfort break, and then they come back, sessions timed out. So there should be a reasonable timeout for that. We should limit the program files access to only those areas or individuals who really need it. Reserve the first right to terminate the employee access at any moment, and perhaps provide services for remote file storage and other tasks, as opposed to expecting people to find their own storage solutions as well. That's me, Fun.
Certainly, looks like there are more challenges, Anish, than any opportunities coming out of this. And obviously, so like everyone, all wait for that to be over, hopefully.
Indeed.
But moving to the other part of our panel subjects, this is something which I want to post it to Prasanna Lohar. So unlike industries like healthcare and insurance, IoT has not made significant inroads into banking industry. Probably you may want to disagree, then I'll be more happier, because that's how I see that IoT has probably made more inroads into healthcare and insurance than banking. And do you see there will be a change in trend towards the banking on adopting IoT, Prasanna? Yes, Prasanna, you're on mute, Prasanna.
Okay, so okay. So funny, very good question, and greetings to everybody. I can see some of my mentors on this guys, Shalini ma'am, and some of my friends, Amit is there. So coming back, IoT adoption in a banking is not that great, but not in actual banking, but IoT through cameras and surveillance, or some of the banks has done some experiments around wearable banking or contactless banking and so on. But I think post-COVID, after COVID, or during COVID, customer behavior has changed now. Customer is sitting at home. Customer who was visiting branch earlier before COVID would like to see all of his services there and there itself, on mobile or wherever is going around. He wants to see those services there and there itself. And I think what is that we have seen in the past. Mobile adoption has happened in the country. Say, ma'am was talking about smartphone adoption since 2005-6. We have seen post Android and iOS has become more prominent, and post Geo, I think almost all countrymen have a capacity to go for internet. So I think at least 40 to 50% people are on smartphones, and rest of them are feature phone. But as a internet facility is now going through villages also through this BharatNet program. I think that is a really big boost for going for internet-based applications. Why IoT was not picked up by banks? There are a lot of loopholes in current IoT devices and offerings. IoT is not that secure. This is what people say, and it's an opportunity here onwards. Whenever there is a challenge, we have to see it as an opportunity. Customer, the way they have adopted mobile, they will certainly adopt IoT in a huge way. I will not be surprised. IoT will become one of the normal technology in next 3 years. Right? Like people, the way recently we have seen launch of Apple Glass or Geo Glass, or even Google already has that AR VR glasses, right? So that's adoption by millennials, and tomorrow's banking, which will be driven by millennials, will have lot of IoT gadgets they will be carrying, wearables, shoes. We'll have shirts, IoT based shirts, right? You will have your health monitoring devices. The people who are keeping at a hill, hard, which and those kind of devices people will carry, and those kind of adoption has happened in healthcare. But tomorrow you will the Gookie who has done some experiment with Axis Bank, right? So that's the kind of through the band which people are carrying, they can do the contactless payment, and it's not that great thing to implement. It's just like an adoption, and I think in near future almost all banks will go for those contactless or this kind of a variable kind of payments. I'll be more happy to look at how adoption will happen in banking because of the customer's IoT adoption at home. Tomorrow, after 5-6 years, every home, the way it was an aspiration for a home to have a television in 80s or 90s, you will have a robots or some kind of a home assistant at your home. Us millennials, they are already on those Siri or Alexa. So slowly, you know or you never know, these devices will be part of your integral life. And then it becomes ultimate responsibility of bank to bring on banking services there also. Let me order pizza through Alexa, let me see the weather, or let me do the payment of my travel to the Alexa or a Siri. That kind of a communication methods will come in a customer. And post-COVID, this adoption will be very huge because people don't want to touch. People don't want to go to ATM and touch that screen. People don't want to really go to the branches and do some payment. They want every payment has to happen on mobile. Similarly, they want payment should happen seamlessly. I don't want to do electricity payment on my own. Let my tube light or let my fan do their electricity. Let that IoT device, so-called refrigerator, will order or reorder those ingredients are required. That's the future. When we see this is the future, and there are some car companies are also getting automated, right? So although adoption outside of India is huge, but in India, some of the car companies have experimented these things, right? The contactless payments, Honda has done the experiment, Maruti has done experiments. So tomorrow your cars will do the payment for your petrol, or if they are entering the shopping mall, coming out of the shopping mall, their parking charges will get deducted automatically. So I think next level of your customers are IoT devices. We have human beings, fine, but machines and IoT devices are gonna become your next customers for banks. And banks, some of the banks have understood. The banks who are on that API journey, and they can expose these API, those IoT based companies or car companies or refrigerator companies. So those, and tomorrow I'll not be surprised that UPI is available on a refrigerator, or UPI is available on some of the IoT devices. That will be, that is how human has really surpassed the current challenge and get into the next level. So I think that's a good future. IoT has some of the bottlenecks like security, and I think IoT in combination with the blockchain, that's what people say, IoT plus blockchain is a really good combination, so that both the technology will help each other. Blockchain has that smart contract, will tell electricity at the end of a month to do the bill payments. Blockchain has that smart contract which will tell car, once he comes out automatically of that accident, immediately do the claim for that insurance. So IoT plus blockchain, moreover blockchain add an additional security layer for IoT. So IoT will, if I want to open a door of my house with some IoT key or a IoT based door, so it will be opened by that authentic customer itself with an additional layer which will add with the blockchain. So I think IoT as an adoption, other industries have really adopted, but certainly I'll not be surprised in the next 1 year. Some of the banks really do the good experiments around Alexa, smart home, smart car integration for payments, or refrigerator integration for payments, or wearable rings, or there are many more. And I think one last part which I want to talk about, 5G. Once 5G will come, you can't imagine how many use cases will come in our life. The way customer was very happy to talk to your mobile phone or Alexa, there will be immersive integrations, immersive interfaces like AR, VR. That type of interfaces will come. The web technology which came into 95 in our life, and post Orkut or Google or Facebook come in our life, we started utilizing web technology more, or inherently we come up with an innovation called internet banking. Smartphone came into our picture, we come up with a mobile banking. With AR, VR plus 5G, you will not be surprised. there will be another world, another AR/VR world where people will log in into that AR/VR world and will do the shopping. I'll not be surprised Jio or somebody will come. I think Alibaba has already come up with the AR/VR based shopping, where that integration from banking has to be done. So I think once 5G will come and 5G will be well adopted, provided there are other challenges, hindrances around environmental aspects on 5G, but that's how technology get adopted. With the 5G, you will have a better security, we'll have a better, lot of things will be improved with the 5G. Customer will be able to get an immediate experience. You will have a more adoption of drones. Your drones will be more accurate with the 5G. They will reach out to a very larger speed and dynamic speed. I think future is really bright, and I think I will say that we are quite. We have seen the challenging time of COVID, but COVID has taught a lot to the customer, and customer is now become more agile. Customer is become more hyper personalized. Customer wants everything wherever he is. He wants his transaction should happen automatically. IoT devices should work automatically. I think post COVID with the IoT along with the blockchain and 5G, you will see certainly certain good number of adoption in banking also. Yeah.
So effectively, what Prasanna is saying is it's a matter of time, and the days are not very far away from banking also adopting into the IoT. Quite insightful information, Prasanna, and thanks for that. So I'll totally move into the data part of it, because I mean, with so much of technology and what used to be a decade back used to be a limited information storage, has now become, with all these devices, the amount of information that you have, either the personal information or any transactional information, has significantly raised in the last several years. So with data playing this key role in digital transformation, my question to Amit Saxena is, what are your thoughts on the have an level data strategy which addresses core issues such as security and data privacy, which in a way Prasanna also has brought in with IoT, right? I mean, so over to you, Amit.
Right, and thanks, Funny, and good afternoon, everybody. So what we have seen in COVID, and the data security and data management part was always there. Banks were very particular about how to said that, but having what we have seen with the new changes, what we have to implement, wherein a maximum number of a workforce is not currently being attached onto a kind of a working through a VPN or working from anywhere. What we have seen, there's another level of data management which have put into a question, right? So people who are working from home, it's a bank's data, how that data should be secure, there should not be any shoulder surfing, etc., etc. So that has put in a new, what I would say, a new arena, what we are looking at, and having, and what we have to look at, how we should have a, probabilistic determination of the data, how it is being used by people whom we have interested into that data, right? So, and it's a customer data. So we have worked on to some of the very different solutions, and we have implemented it just to make sure that, because the data which is now being accessed outside from the data center, so there is no central data in a data center nowadays, right? So the federated data now needs to be looked at from a differential aspect itself. You have to see that how well we can do an object storage built in around the data, so that data, because that's the most important part of our business, right? So the data means money to everybody in the banking industry, right? So that's what we are working upon, and we have built in. So we already have everything which is needed, but given now the data is being accessed not in front of our eyes, but outside the premise also. So we have built in those things. And going forward, as we see forward, that we are working on to see how well all of this data is being kind of used. The other thing is how to see the, performance management of people who have been working out from home. That basis that, and it has got a correlation. How much data has been accessed and how much data is being seen by people. And we have built in some of the best AI-based rules to measure that kind of a thing. And we are first over that. And so we have presented it to a lot many places at the right forums within the country where it matters. And I believe we would start talking about it a lot more in coming days. Thank you very much, Fanny.
Thanks a lot, Amit. I mean, I've just taken a time check. I didn't even realize. I just felt like we have just started with one round of each. And I have to take Madhav's view on, do you have time for Q&A, Madhav?
Let me just check if we have any questions. Allow me a minute.
Yeah, Madhav.
Should I read the question? Should I read the
Yes.
question?
So the questions will be live and it will be coming in.
Hi, Funny, hi. Can you hear me, Soumya?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, Funny. Yeah. So, Funny, first of all, let me congratulate you. Fantastically moderated panel. And you did a great job, Funny. So, all kudos to you. And thank you for wonderfully moderating this panel and taking every viewpoint of this esteemed panel members. I would also like to thank all the esteemed panel members here. Shalini ma'am, Anish, Prasanna, Sanjay, everyone. I think fantastically done job that we had here for all the panel members for this particular session. And one of the best thing is, as we were having going through this panel, we were understanding. So we got a couple of questions. So Funny, I would be reading the questions to you, and it's totally your call to direct it to the respective panel member and take this ahead. All right. So we got a question, which is, do you think that the artificial intelligence?
Speak, Soumya.
Am I audible now?
Yep. Now it is better, but earlier it was a lot of feedback.
Okay. All right. So coming to the question, Funny, do you think that the artificial intelligence and machine learning has come to terms with reality for your business as the hype bubbles down, as the rubber hits the road? Should I repeat again?
Yeah, please. And also for the panelists, sorry,
Yeah, I'm just-
Soumya. Yeah, go ahead. Let me listen to the question again, Soumya.
Yeah. So the question is, do you think that the artificial intelligence and machine learning has come to terms with reality for your businesses as the hype bubbles come down as the rubber hits the road? Very artistically question, but I hope you got that. The question.
Yeah. I mean, we have come to the real fact that these are parts of our life, and how we reconcile to the fact that they will be with us for ages to come, right? So, I mean, I would like, because the entire panel has such a vast experience in driving this, it will be very unfair on my part to handpick one. So maybe we will go with anyone who wants to take it on first. Probably can raise their hand and go on this.
So I can attempt. So I think people think AI is like AI has been tried for several years. Early 60s, 70s. It came on neural networks. Were very earlier. I think in the 70s thing. The challenge was the amount of information that you have, and the limitation of a human brain, that how much it can process. Simple. Now with the advances that has happened in the computing, with quantum computing coming in soon, this equation has been reversed. So now let's just look at healthcare. I talk about it because I was doing a startup in healthcare. Imagine when there was a very interesting study. What they did was they kind of showed, a faulty heart, to let's say a bunch of doctors, and then they kind of said, what is the probability of this guy getting, heart attack in a reasonable time? A lot of doctors, said, the opinion was divided, right? Why it was divided? But see, look at human brain. How many images or things you can kind of store, right? Now think about a supercomputer, I can feed thousands and thousands and millions of images, and I can say, this image, guy got a heart attack. This image, guy did not get a heart attack. Got a heart attack, not got a heart attack. Now imagine if you go to this kind of an expert and you push your, let's say, whether it's a brain scan or a heart your imagery, who can do a better job? I mean, how many pictures can you remember? How many, you can assimilate, but, over a period of time, so there is absolutely no confusion that, eventually machines are gonna, because it's simply about the information processing, how much they can do. So this is now a sorted thing that machine learning and AI, in whichever form it's gonna come in big time. Now, how organizations will evolve, how will they adapt? Will they be able to use it for a business justification? A lot of human intelligence is still needed to solve a problem. That will still remain. You'll see look at autonomous cars. It's all about AI. Look at pictures. Tesla, they're not perfect, but Tesla self-drive is happening. So, drones, again, pinpointing, dropping, it's lots of, image processing, managing, it's happening. Most of the planes actually are run on autopilots most of the time. So it's already there. So it's not a question of hype versus this thing. It's like to what level they can go.
So it is only when you adopt is the question, not whether you should or not. I mean, Shalini, you want to add very quickly 1 or 2 sentences on this?
Just very quickly, because I'm also conscious of time and I think I agree with what has been said. I don't think organizations like us or banks can kind of miss the journey on artificial intelligence or machine learning, given the amount of data we have to crunch, given the amount of expectations from customers that you will do hyper personalization, that you will kind of take each customer as one. The only way we can do it is through use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I think everybody will have a number of examples of where this has been put into effect. But in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of stop here.
Okay, thanks a lot, Shalini.
So one point I want to highlight in single one line. Okay, what we have seen as a banking so far, like a unidirectional banking, say through branch banking, people have to go to the branch, right? People have to reach to that branch after walking. Then we have seen branches come to your home, laptops or desktops as internet banking. Then you are carrying your bank in your pocket with the smartphones and so on. Tomorrow's bank will be bi-directional bank, right? Bank will be always there wherever you are, and that is all possible only with AI. That's in one line I wanted to say.
You hit the nail on head. Very, very true. Soumya, do you have time for another question, or how are we?
Yeah, funny. So actually, I was about to ask that question to you, since you are our honorable moderator. So funny, in the interest of time, because I think Shalini ma'am just mentioned that, of course, she's having another schedule, so time is short supply, and of course for all the other esteemed panel members as well. So we have one question, but funny, my question is to you: do we have the time to ask that last question? Absolutely up to you. What you decide.
No, I mean, already the whole session started 40 minutes late. I can sit and talk with this esteemed group for another 1 hour, 2 hours easily. But unfortunately, I think we have to stop it because Sanjay and Shalini both have some severe time restrictions. As much as I enjoyed this, I mean, I can't allow that to go any further, Soumya.
Absolutely, respect that. So first of all, thank you, esteemed panel members. Thank you, Shalini ma'am. Thank you, Prasanna. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Anish, and thank you, Sanjay, for joining in this panel. It is indeed a pleasure for us to have all of you industry experts into this virtual panel session. Wonderful session. We've got wonderful feedback from the delegates who are asking us questions. We got, actually, to tell all of you, we got 21 questions in this session, 21. And the one which was repeated the most, I read out that question to Funny. So That's the reason we asked for one more question. So, guys, I think, ma'am, everyone, Amit, Prasanna, Anish, Sanjay, and Funny, you yourself, fantastic job and fantastic. So, I think we are all clapping for you guys. Greatly done, Funny. Wonderfully moderated panel. Always a pleasure to have you. So, very quickly, I would like to close this panel session and also close the proceedings for today. So, it was wonderful having you experts here in this panel. And Funny, thank you for giving time. Shalini ma'am, thank you for giving time.
Thank you.
Amit, Anish, Sanjay, thank you for giving time.
Thank you.
We would like to thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank
We
you.
would now like to thank our partners and sponsors for supporting us.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.